Hi, and welcome to the 13th, 14th, 15th, what are we at now, Leader Post video podcast. That was the Leader Post Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Izzy Rachmaninoff, and I'm here with a couple of esteemed gentlemen. I had a haircut yesterday, and evidently Murray and Jim followed suit. Murray McCormick, our venerable football reporter, and I don't think any introduction is required here, although there'll be a formal introduction this weekend when he's inducted into the Plaza of Honor. The great Jim Hobson, number 52. Thanks for being with us today, Jim.
Thanks, Rob. Hey, Murray.
Hi, Jim. I like getting my hair cut, too, because it keeps it out of my eyes.
It gets expensive after a while.
I got to pay for this.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How much is the sandpaper?
Cost me $22 with tip.
Home hardware for the haircut. Yeah. I'd like to start. I know there's myriad issues enveloping the Rough Riders this year, and we're going to get to them. But I think the big event this week, and a big and well-deserved event for our special guest, is induction into the Plaza of Honor this weekend alongside John Terry. Good week for offensive linemen, Jim. I think it's the first all offensive lineman induction into the Plaza of Honor. What's going through your mind this week as you prepare for this? It must be must bring back a lot of memories that are still pretty fresh.
It does, and as it gets closer, you start thinking about Friday night, and I've got my speech ready, but then you start thinking about things maybe you should add or whatever, and so I got to be careful not to turn into Scott Schultz and deliver an hour monologue, but I'm not going to do that.
We'll take that today, though. We're trying to kill time.
No, I'm excited, and my daughter and granddaughter came in earlier this week, and then the rest of her family will come later, and so family and friends, and they're talking about it, and we've got some things planned with the family and so on. So it's going to be an exciting time, and as exciting as inducting two offensive linemen can be. Although I'm certainly not going in as a player, I'm going in as a builder, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, you were undefeated in home playoff games, weren't you?
Well,
how many Rough Riders can say that?
I don't know. I was just happy to have home playoff games because, as you guys know, we went a long time without a home playoff game, and it was a big deal when we finally broke that barrier in 2007.
I find you've touched upon the family and friends part, and that's what I've noticed at the Plaza of Honor. What a massive event it is for the players and all their families. I've seen so many players, tables full of families. It must be cool to be able to share that, because part of the family thing is part of you away from your families for so very often when you're doing all this football stuff. It must be nice to be able to bring them in and let you all celebrate this momentous occasion for you.
It is, and it's a big deal to, my mom is very excited, of course, and I'm excited that she's still with us and able to be there. I've made sure that I've reached out to a lot of my old Ram teammates, because that was what started it for me, was, really, well, Tom Collegiate and Lauren Schmier, and Lauren is going to be there on the weekend. He was my coach in high school, and then, of course, the Rams, and unfortunately, Gord is no longer with us, but he's always with us. If you're a former Ram, Gord is still part of your life, and we still celebrate his birthday and go to his favorite place and all that kind of thing. But no, it is exciting, and it brings back a lot of memories of being a young rookie with the Riders and trying out, and then becoming a fan, and then coming back as a CEO, and so you kind of reflect on things, and especially the people. You start thinking about the people you met and the people that really helped you along the way. And when you go in as a builder, you're really going in representing a whole bunch of folks, because a president and CEO can't do anything without good people around them, whether they're board or staff or volunteers, and that was really key for me.
You also became the face of the Rough Riders. Not saying it's a kind of a rugged look to it, but we'll go along with that.
It's a big face, but yeah, and not by design, but kind of by necessity. When I started, Roy wasn't enamored with the new structure, as we know, and I have a lot of fondness for Roy, and a lot of appreciation for what he did. He really put the team back on a solid basis in terms of personnel, and we became competitive. In fact, I had about a 10 or 15 minute phone call with Roy about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he was getting ready for knee surgery, so he was asking me about how mine went, and I told him, Roy, you should surprise everybody and come in for my induction. That would be a highlight. And he, Roy, he had a pretty smart answer for that, but Roy was reluctant to be the face of the Riders at times. He certainly wasn't shy, and he wasn't afraid to express his opinion. But that it was a difficult period. And then, of course, Eric came in, and with Eric and Kent, we had two great faces of the franchise, and they both did a tremendous job. But then when Eric got into his legal issues, well, then he went to the background, and so somebody had to step up, and I did. But once I was able to step back, I was happy to do that and let the football guys represent the football team, but we had so much going on in those days with the business side, whether it was playoff games, expansion to the stadium, new stadiums, and so it seemed like we were always in the forefront of the news with everything that was going on. So, but I have to say, I don't really miss those days. It was fun, but it's kind of nice just living the life now.
Can I just tell one quick story?
Sure.
I'm sorry to do it, but I remember when the first home playoff game here for a long, long time, and people were lining up to get tickets outside Mosaic Stadium, and they were annoyed and PO'd at the Rough Riders because they couldn't get tickets. And you went out there in front of them and did interviews in front of all the people in this line. I thought, that ever brave. And you said, we got to do this. They are our people. They're our clients. They're our customers. We have to be accountable to them. And I thought, what a cool way. And I thought I really developed I had respect for you, but that showed so much respect for you and your understanding of the position that day. And I still remember it was a sunny day and it was kind of crazy. All these fans, you went right into the heart of the belly of the Rider Nation and came out smelling like a rose, I guess.
I learned that in my career in education and with the Riders, you can run, but you can't hide. And the best way to deal with an issue is to get out in front of it and to, answer the questions and be as candid as you can be. But I remember that morning too. And it really speaks to how the team has evolved because, quite frankly, we weren't prepared. We hadn't had a home playoff game in 19 years, and we were in transition from, the old technology of in-person and telephone to computers and ordering online and so on. We weren't, and the staff, Gail and her staff, Gail and Carol and Jen, they're still with the team today. They were just doing unbelievable work, but we weren't ready. And so people started lining up early in the morning and standing down there and I thought, oh, this isn't going to go well because there's so much demand. And of course, people online got in and got tickets, and people were standing in line didn't, and so we tried to balance that. So we learned, and after a while we had more home playoff games, but that was the one that everybody wanted a ticket to, and we sold it out, and of course it really set the stage for the Grey Cup.
What? Sorry, Jim. Did I
go ahead.
You?
No.
What blows you away, or blows me away, is the difference between when you started in that organization and when you finished. I remember around that time there was a financial statement that came out, and the profit was like $300 or $400. I mean, if one season ticket holder had canceled, the team would have lost money.
We joked about that.
I loved that one. And by the end of the tenure, the Grey Cup count has doubled. There's no longer any prospect of a 3-digit profit or a telethon, and a new stadium is under construction. The whole scale of the business just increased exponentially in terms of size and profile. The transformative nature of that decade, I'm still trying to wrap my 19 brain cells around it because it was amazing the Rough Riders were huge before that. Mm-hmm. And there were days I remember back then thinking, man, people are just so obsessed with this team. But then it just starts going to a level that I don't think anybody could have ever fathomed or even digested.
I totally understand, and I marvel at that myself sometimes. When I went in 2005, January 2nd, 2005, I kind of knew what to expect because I'd been a special advisor to the board as an alumni, and I'd been around the team. But it was shocking, actually, to walk in and find out just how much we relied on a small group of employees that were tremendously dedicated and hardworking, and a very large group of volunteers. We were really volunteer run and staff supported, and it was mom and pop all the way. I didn't have an office when I got there, and that wasn't unusual because we had no space. We were in the old stadium, and
but you're the president CEO.
I know, but you know what? I soon was rolling up my sleeves and helping Huey move the water pails when it rained. It was just that way, and people just the one constant, and I've said this so many times, but the one constant was always the fans. We always had this great fan base. Didn't matter what the stadium was like, what the record was like, the Riders had their fan base, and although at times during the 90s, it was very trying for the fans. But so we were just making it up on the fly, and we were talking all the time about embracing new technology. But of course, that took money, resources. We didn't have resources, so we had to do certain things, and so we just had to scrape and find a way to do it. But season tickets, literally, we did them all by hand, and we'd have the locker room full of season tickets, and the staff and volunteers are sorting them out, and then they're picking them up. And now, of course, we've gone to little cards and all the rest of it. But that didn't happen overnight, and it was a lot of work and a lot of resources to build it. 07 was such a key year, such a catalyst, not just for the football team because it put us back as a team to be reckoned with, but it gave us some resources to start doing the things we needed to do. And I remember when the first thing I did when I got there in 05 was I walked in the locker room and I thought, man, this place has not changed since the 70s. It's the same. And I said to Normie, what have we done in here since the 70s? He said, I've painted it twice, and he said, I got the paint donated. That was it. And you guys know, you were there. Yeah. So the first thing we did was we renovated the locker room. I said, we got to show the players that we're a first class organization, and that we're gonna try and put the players first all the time. So we got new lockers and did a lot of work in there. Didn't have the resources. I'm sure the board was going, how's he going to pay for this? Because our budget was really tight. And but of course, when the crowds came, then we started driving the revenue, and when the revenue came, we were able to make improvements. And so it one hand feeds the other, and it really the 4 years from 7 through 10 with 3 Grey Cup appearances were huge for us in terms of growing our fan base and getting those season ticket numbers up to a place where we knew that we were going to be okay.
I had supper at Houston Pizza in the Hill Avenue Shopping Center the other night, and while having my 19th course, it occurred to me, I was reminded of the scale of the organization as it once was and as it currently exists. I mean, the office used to be right above that Houston Pizza, and now the office is a $278 million stadium. Yeah. I don't think the extremes can be more divergent than they were then compared to what they are now.
It's funny, I always think of, my time with the Riders when I drive by Houston down on Hill Avenue. And yeah, we go upstairs, and Ken Preston and the 3 coaches and 1 receptionist would be up there. Coaches might be watching film, and Ken would make you a contract offer, and then get up, walk to the windows, and look out over Hill Avenue. And after about 5 minutes, you'd realize, I guess this conversation is over, and that's a final offer. And it was so. Of course, and we practiced at the old horse track, in exhibition grounds, and we were upstairs again over in the upper part of the building, and I'm sure when the players would come and the coach John Payne would give us a little talk before practice and say, hey, you new guys, you keep your heads up, watch for the horses. Yeah. And they'd be horses watching, and you'd watch for the horses, and you practiced in the middle of the racetrack. So, and we used to ride to the games on city buses. We'd get on the bus and take us over to Taylor Field, and a lot of the guys would hide their cigarettes in their helmets and put their hand pads on them. And, talk about that. I mean, how many, you never see a pro football player really smoke. Maybe the wrong thing they might smoke, but you don't see them,
or eat.
Times have just changed so much, and it's a different world, and it's a great world. I mean, that new stadium is state of the art, but it's still the Saskatchewan Roughriders, still the green and white, and those of us that have been around remember all the goods from the old days too.
That we and they do. Murray, I had the last 2 questions. Here's your final question of the day. What would you like to ask Jim?
Well, we've looked at the past. Let's jump into the immediate past. What do you think of the Duron Carter situation? You've watched him from afar. You've seen guys. What do you think is a?
I grew to appreciate him a lot more than when he first came here. I'd watched what had happened in Montreal, and I knew that he had great talent, but he could also be a challenge for the coaches and for the team. But he did show a very good side in terms of dealing with the public and the fans and the kids and so on. But, it's a tough spot for Chris and the coaches. They got to do what's best for the team. And one of the things I learned about the coaches and general managers and so on is nobody cares more. Nobody has more at stake. I mean, they understand it's their jobs, their livelihood, their passion. And so they're just consumed by it. And so to cut a Duron Carter it's a gutsy decision because you're subtracting some talent. There's no doubt about that. But obviously, the feeling must have been that they would be a better team without him, that they could be a better locker room. I'm not privy to what goes on in there, and I'm not sure. You hear stories, but I have no more inside knowledge than the average fan right now. I don't spend a lot of time talking to the football people. I'm still friends with Jeremy O'Day, and we chat, but you move on. So I think though that they really felt it was time to send a message to the team about what's important, and obviously they've got confidence in the guys that they've got still.
Pardon me. I should have had another Slurpee for breakfast. What impact does it have on an organization when there is a story like this? And I'm not commenting on whether it's a positive story or a negative story, but it's a story people are talking about and opinions are divided. And it does have an effect on the brand because people are talking about it. I don't know if there's a parallel here, but you were the president CEO in 2008 when Kerry Joseph was traded a few months after winning the Grey Cup and Most Outstanding Player. And again, it's a player-related transaction that has people quite emotional in some cases. When there's something like that that affects an organization and that has an impact on the organization to the extent that people are talking about it that much, what's it like to be in that chair? What's it like to be with the Rough Riders when there's such a big story out there?
I think overall it's a good thing because it shows the investment that the fans have, the community has. I mean, it's better than being in Toronto where, players get cut, players get hurt, and nobody cares. And that's really sad because, Toronto has the potential to be a great football city. It's a great sports city, but the Argos are still struggling. So I always thought it was a positive. There were times you got frustrated because you could not go anywhere. You go to get your laundry, go to get a coffee. No matter where you go, you're going to run into people who want to talk to you about I went in this morning to grab a coffee, and older couple were there getting coffee, and they said, "Hey, we were watching in the huddle last night, and they were talking about you." And so, I still get that. So you got to appreciate it. And as we talked about earlier, you can run, but you can't hide. But one of the things I learned was that the really big events, Kerry Joseph, Kent Austin leaving the team, Kent Austin coming back to the team, Eric Tillman, key players getting cut. It's a really big deal out in the fan world, but the team tends to move on faster. They're shocked. They lose a friend. They maybe not agree, but they tend to kind of get back to their focus. If they're a good team, they do, which is we got to play on Sunday, we got to play on Saturday, and it's next man up. And that kind of comes from the injuries too, because you have to harden yourself as a player to seeing a good friend get hurt and maybe lost for the season, maybe lost, forever. And so it's next man up, and you move on. And you may have personal feelings, but the team tends to move on faster sometimes, I think, than what the football world does. And particularly if you've got a head coach that keeps you focused, a head coach like Kenny Miller, Ken Austin, they would bring the guys back to reality. When you brought up Kerry, I remember we were driving, my wife and I, in a rental car in Florida, and Eric called me and said, I'm going to move Kerry. I'm like, just let me pull out of the ditch here while and we talked about it, but, I was, and I still remember my wife saying to me, "You're not going to let him do that." And I said, "I'm either going to let him do it or I'm going to become the general manager, and I'm not going to become the general manager." So I got to trust that Eric has a plan, and he's implementing it, and I may not be happy, but I'm going to support him, and that's the way it is. So you kind of, you see so many things, and you kind of get to the point you say, this too shall pass, and hopefully it's the right decision. And of course, that's the thing that Coach Jones knows. He'll be proven right or he'll be proven wrong, and he's going to wear it, and he knows that, and he accepts that responsibility. It's better than a GM that can't make a decision, that just is frozen because of the expected or anticipated response. And I found that with Eric, he made some big calls, and some of them blew up, and some of them didn't, and some of them were, like bringing Kent Austin back was a stroke of genius. But when he first told me he was going to bring Kent back, I didn't think that was maybe the best thing. But so you got to trust your people, and hopefully they deliver.
Maybe that explains the timing of the Duron Carter release a little bit, getting it out there. Why didn't they announce it sooner or later? Maybe doing it on Saturday, the team can move forward. They all come back on Monday, and I agree with you. I'm not saying I don't. I agree with you. The team moves forward. When we go to practice today, they're all beyond it. I doubt if Chris Jones is going to take questions about Duron Carter again, because they're working towards Sunday.
He shouldn't. He did. He sort of dealt with it on Sunday.
Yeah, so it's still a hot topic because Duron was out in the public yesterday and all these sort of things. But the team moves forward. Well, I know, Jim, I know we have a little bit of time here. What do you think of this team moving forward? Are they a better team without Duron Carter?
They may not be as talented a team, but I think they will be a better team in terms of a team focus and what they're trying to do in offense and so on. The team has talent. There's no doubt that the defense can play with anybody. Jones is a good coordinator. They've brought in some really good people, and I think they're going to be fine there. Special teams is very good, not just because of the returners they have, but they have a lot of good special teams players. But it's no great observation to say that they struggle in offense, and it really comes back to quarterback. And I always believed you can't win in this league without a good quarterback. You don't have to have a great quarterback, but you have to have a good quarterback, and a great quarterback like a Riley or a Bo Levi, makes a world of difference. And we're seeing BC picking it up now that Lule's back, and so on. So it's the next couple of games are really going to be important in terms of what Zach does, what kind of an offense are they going to play. McAdoo's taking a lot of heat because of very conservative, but he's putting in the plays he thinks will work with the players he has right now. And as they go forward, hopefully they'll evolve. And I watched the football guys with interest when I was president in terms of how they viewed the season. And most of them view the season in sort of three parts. There's the first 6 games, the middle, and then the last. And they're through that first now. And so it doesn't surprise me that Chris made the move now. He's evaluated the team based on what he's seen in the first third of the season. He's had a couple of bye weeks, so his team is pretty rested. And he knows he's got to play a lot of games now in a row. And so he's setting it up so that, they're going to win the games they should win. And that, I learned that from Roy and Eric. They would say there's games you'd like to win, but there's games you should win. And if you lose those should wins, then you start struggling. Then you got to come up big when, in somebody else's stadium against a very good team. And home games are so important. You really need to win the majority of your home games. There's no doubt about that.
What's a home game like for you now compared to what it was like for a decade in your palatial suite with servants and valets and enablers?
Yeah, very, very relaxing. It's so nice just to walk into the stadium, and we almost always go up to the alumni lounge, which now, we were tucked away in a little corner of the green and white, and now we go up, and although it was pretty special having that, but to go up and visit and watch the guys warm up, and then go down to your seats, and it's very nice. It's a beautiful stadium, and we're kind of getting used to it, but we had friends in from Alberta, and we took them to their first game, the last game, and they were just in awe of it. They couldn't get over what a beautiful stadium was. Their last game here had been in the old stadium, so it was quite a change for them, and so it's kind of nice to see that.
I'm curious, do you wear a Hobson 52 jersey in the stands? Everybody's got names and numbers. You had a name and number on a jersey. What do you wear now? I
just wear a Rider jersey or Rider golf shirts and T-shirts and so on. I've never worn the jersey other than on special events when they wanted us to, at alumni days and so on. I had a big thrill though the last game. Scott Schultz and I were out on the I call it the practice field, but it's Confederation Park now, and we were doing a little promotion of the Plaza, and I spotted not one but 2 Hobson jerseys. one was family, so it didn't, and that's usually the only one. Yeah. But the other guy was a fan, and I don't see that very often. So Schultz thought that was quite an achievement to see two in one.
I met a guy who had a Hobson jersey, and I hate to tell you why. He says he was a big guy, and he says you could get the offensive lineman jerseys fit him.
That's a good reason.
That's why he had the highs. I said, really? He said, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
No offense, Jim. My wife has a Joey Walters jersey, 17. So.
17. Nothing. I have a 17, but it was given to us when we announced the new stadium, and it was going to open in 17. So I have that 17 jersey as well.
Well, we'll see how 17 does this weekend. Going back to your earlier comment.
Yeah.
Jim Hobson, what an honor and pleasure it's been to have you with us. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. And I hope you really enjoy the weekend, as you should. It's a well-deserved and inevitable tribute to you and all you did for the team.
Thank you, and thanks for your support over the years. The Leader Post, I was a paper boy, as you know, and so it's always been a big part of my life, and I still read it at least online every day, and really appreciate the support we've had from the Leader Post and from all the media. In fact, I mean, it's a pretty good town to be involved in sports.
I'm kind of disappointed you read it online, because I used to think you were the last diehard of reading the print editions. Used to talk about the ink-stained fingers in those days, but
I still enjoy reading it. With the paper, but the little store by us sometimes it doesn't come in until late in the day, and I'm in the store early and all that kind of stuff. But Saturday in particular, I like to get a hold of the Saturday paper and sit down and read it over the weekend. Yeah.
Well, Jim, on the way out today, I'll hand you a stack of the last week so you can catch up on that cherished deceased newsprint. Jim, thanks a ton. Murray, as always. I'm Rob Vanstone. This has been one of several Leader Post Rider Rumblings podcasts. I've lost count, but thank you so much, and we'll do this again next week. Take care.